Hey, hello, how are you? My name is Enrique Palafox. I'm here with Dacre Stoker. Dacre, how are you?
I'm doing well. I tell you, this book is now probably we've arrived. You think the most important 4, 5, 6 days of the whole novel. It's this is the most important part. You know, the characters up until this point have been trying to figure out what's going on, and everything presents itself. There's still plenty of mystery, mind you, but it all comes out. The science and the folklore meet here, and all hell breaks loose.
This is definitely one of the highlights of the novels. This past week, it is so intense, so full of information, and Bram took his time to tell us about his findings.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, so much of his research on vampire superstition and folklore are presented to the reader here. And as we all know, he merged different superstitions and folklore into one, Count Dracula. You know, these were not typically things that, you know, all vampires in folklore had
Yeah,
or demonstrated, but what he did is made like a super vampire of all these things. And so he
definitely.
mixed these together. And that's one reason why it made it really difficult for all these guys to figure out. But Van Helsing figured it out.
He has it. Let me translate this. Bienvenidos, una semana más, una semana muy llena de acción, muy llena de intensidad. No nos hemos esperado para ya tener mucho más información y bueno, pues ya estamos aquí en una semana, como dice Dacre, llena de información porque bueno, pues aquí es donde se mezcla todo lo que es el folclore y la ciencia y bueno, pues vamos a empezar. Ok, Dacre.
So, you know, we get given these things like the repellents. You know, I've got to take along the garlic, the crucifix. You know, all these things come together as actual tools. You know, the actual tools that we begin to see. Bram also uses the word that Dracula is cunning, which comes directly out of the William Wilkinson book. That Dracula is given to a person who exhibits cunning or courage. And then finally, what I really love in this portion is this quote that I think sums up the book. When Van Helsing is trying to explain to these guys, particularly scientist and steward, there are mysteries which men can only guess at, which age by age they may solve only in part. We have now solved one of them. This one we have solved is the proof that you've been looking for, that Lucy really is been a victim of a vampire. The blood is not just going somewhere they don't see. And that Lucy herself has turned into one. She is the Bloofer lady. And so we finally convince Dr. Seward, who is for the evidence, that it's there.
And this is very important because if you think about it, this is most of the horrific part of the novel because at this moment one of the dearest characters of the novel has become in one of the evil things that they need to pursue. They need to look into her eyes and they need to confront a person that they love a couple of days ago. So that should be very scary in real life.
Can you imagine? I mean, if you had to do this, you know, when someone dies in our life, they go to the funeral home, you don't see them, maybe there's an open casket or they get cremated. It's at a distance. But here, they've got to deal with it themselves and actually, as we see soon, stake, cut the head off. It's traumatizing.
It's traumatizing, yeah. Ok, aquí vemos ya las acciones correspondientes, ¿no? A Lucy, cómo se transforma en la Bloofer Lady, todos estos relatos. Y como dice Dacre, bueno, pues viene esta frase que es importante donde Van Helsing les dice a los demás, ¿no? Que bueno, pues los misterios de la vida, ¿no? Se tienen que ir revelando poco a poco y que bueno, pues ni hablar, ellos les corresponde revelar esta parte del misterio, ¿no? Y tienen que tomar acción ante algo, bueno, pues que nos parece horrible, porque bueno, pues hace una semana era un personaje muy querido del cual todo el mundo está enamorado, y hoy pues tienen que atacarlo, ¿no? Y tienen que corroborar sobre alguien que si bien había estado muerto, pues ahora pues ya regresó a la tumba. Ok, Dacre.
There is one other element you and I need to discuss, Enrique.
Yeah.
And that we see the very strong overtones of sexuality in this chapter when Lucy is transformed into a vampire. Before that, there was never any of these strong words. But when she has, let me just say this, the whole carnal and unspiritual appearance, the voluptuous woman, you know, this is as strong sexual words as Bram Stoker can use without making this book R-rated. But it definitely gives the picture that once she travels to the dark side, the side of the devil, that she is this, you know, wanton creature that tries to convince her husband, come to me, and kiss me. And he comes close, doesn't he? But he doesn't.
They became a temptation, but which is very interesting because all the women become very is it voluptuous?
With a V, voluptuous.
Voluptuous, but not as the men, because Count Dracula is disgusting. He is a very smelly cadaver who has risen from the grave, but the female vampiresses are very desirable.
It's funny. You're right. I have not think of that. They go in two different directions. You know, as Van Helsing explains later on when he's trying to tell the band of heroes, these guys become like, you know, like these horrible creatures. They live forever, and he describes them in this chapter, just as you say, very undesirable, but the women, on the other hand, become very desirable. And I think maybe it's because what Bram is doing is trying to create a situation where the voluptuous and the beauty are attracting more people to join the army, to become the vampire. Definitely. But the males, traditionally, in armies, are the soldiers. They're not the recruiting force, but they can be ugly and horrible, but very strong and powerful. But the women are like the attractors.
Yeah, it's a trap, definitely. Ok, aquí vemos, bueno, pues algo muy interesante que estamos aquí platicando, porque, bueno, finalmente Bram lo que hace es una descripción muy voluptuosa de Lucy. Lucy se transforma en este ser que, lejos de ser repugnante como el conde Drácula, se convierte en algo que es sumamente atractivo, ¿no? Y ahí es donde, bueno, pues está diciendo Dacre, que me parece muy atinado, que se convierte en una especie como de señuelo, ¿no? Porque, bueno, pues va seduciendo a sus víctimas y esas víctimas caen de manera mucho más fáciles, ¿no? Pero bueno, sí vemos aquí como hay una diferencia entre el conde Drácula, que es el único vampiro de la novela, que es desagradable, y por el otro las mujeres son muy sexuales. Ok.
And then we'll just end with this whole incredibly powerful Lucy scene, but Arthur has to do the horrible thing. He finally believes that the only way to give her resting soul an opportunity to rest in peace, that is to hammer down, drive the stake through the heart, and they see in front of her this horrible scene of blood spurting everywhere, but then she reverts back to the peaceful and lovely, not so voluptuous Lucy that they had known. So she transfers back again, coming to sort of to normal, and they say, God bless you that you have given my dear her soul once again. May she rest in peace. So she is no longer this vampire with her soul not at rest. And now the band of heroes have a big task. This is just the beginning, Enrique. They've taken care of her, but they've got something else to do in just a minute.
This was only the open door. Ok, y bueno, aquí vemos, pues muy interesante, ¿no? Como al morir Lucy, que además es literalmente empalada ¿no? Con la estaca, ¿no? Atravesada en el corazón, ¿no? Toda esta voluptuosidad, bueno, pues se regresa a cero, ¿no? Cuando ella se libera. Pero como dice Dacre, bueno, pues esto apenas está empezando, porque, bueno, pues esto es apenas el inicio para nuestros héroes. Okay,
so one of the things we now see is the band of heroes have to move on, and Van Helsing finally meets Jonathan, and he's already known about Jonathan through Mina's notes, so he has a very good idea what this poor man has suffered, but he needs to have Mina's help to unify everybody and give all the information. And Jonathan can give the information to Van Helsing through Mina about what arrangements the Count was making back in Transylvania to get the 50 boxes of earth, obviously with him in one of them, to be transported. Very complicated way, but as you and I spoke about in the past, Bram Stoker knows about shipping things all around the world because of the Lyceum Theater shipping all the designs and everything else, the costumes. He does the same thing. They go by ship, the Demeter, they go from Whitby into London, and then with different carriages and different companies to the different houses. And now the story takes on, for a little while, a detective novel, sort of like a Sherlock Holmes, where Arthur and Jonathan and Quincy, they go in these different directions to get information to try to find out where these boxes are. Yeah. And then they go start paying visits there. So it's an interesting part of the book. It takes a little break from the horror, but it doesn't take long to get back to the horror in just a little while.
Yeah, because they in this detective work that they are doing, they suddenly find what they are looking for.
Yes.
Okay. Aquí, bueno, vemos una pequeña pausa en la narrativa del horror, porque, bueno, si bien pasó eso con Lucy, aquí, como dice Dacre, de repente y por un breve momento, la novela se convierte en una novela de detectives, ¿no? Donde, bueno, nuestros héroes, bueno, pues tienen que dar seguimiento muy puntual, ¿no? A las cajas, y ahí es donde Van Helsing echa mano de Mina, ¿no? Esta Mina, ¿no? Pues que lleva, pues, como todo el orden y que sabe todo el contexto de su esposo en Transilvania. Okay.
And we can't forget, Mr. Renfield, because Mr. Renfield is asked to see Mina and the others, and he has these very normal conversations, which is funny. You know, the last time we chatted, he attacked, he escaped, but now he's back to a normal stage, which was interesting because we learned he's a very educated man, that he was a member of the social club with Lord Godalming. Yeah. So this is an interesting interlude. We can't forget about him before he has a fateful encounter later on with the Count. And then as you were talking earlier with me, why don't you explain Mina goes from being the most important person with her recording phonograph and keeping all the notes together, but sadly she too ends up, when the other guys are distracted with Renfield, she too has her encounter with Dracula.
Yeah, that is a nice turn in the reading, because Bram put all his pieces into this game board, which is very interesting. He sent all the heroes to a specific point, and he suddenly attacks in the other direction. That is amazing.
It does. Yeah. No, for sure. And Mina, who we thought all this time was protected. She was not going to be, you know, how could they possibly allow the Count to have access to her? But she gets there. You know, you think they would have learned all their lessons with taking care of Lucy, but no. Somehow he still is Dracula. He can still get there if he really wants to.
Ya, ok. Y bueno, pues vemos aquí a un conde Drácula pues muy astuto, ¿no? Porque bueno, finalmente mientras los héroes van por un lado, él por el otro lado va a visitar, bueno, primero, bueno, a Mina. Sin embargo, bueno, hablemos rápido de Renfield, que es esta figura importante que bueno, pues en esta parte también encuentra su final y entendemos que es una persona educada, ¿no? De repente tiene un momento de brillantez en esta locura, ¿no? Y llama mucho la atención esta conversación tan horizontal que tiene con Mina, donde, bueno, pues habla con mucha normalidad, ¿no? Y de ella y la previene. Okay, so the chase continue.
The chase continues. Renfield gets, it gets his accident,
Yeah.
and the doctors have to come in and get involved in saving his life. And this is what I find is an interesting way to end this week. Is as I say many times, Thornley Stoker, Bram's oldest brother, provided the information how to do this surgery. He had done this surgery before on people. We know in a journal that I read, a medical journal, that he did it one time and it was not successful. The man died. This is drilling the hole in the head to get the blood out. And one time that it was successful. So he had a 50% chance of getting it right with Renfield. But he used the same techniques, the same tools. And, it's kind of interesting. While it leaves this ambiguity, while Renfield is on the table, he's conscious.
Yeah.
And he's speaking to these guys. And we get a feeling that he dies at the end, but you're still not exactly sure. Just like the Count at the end. Bram leaves the door open a little bit, doesn't he?
Okay. Y bueno, Renfield aquí, bueno, ya tiene su accidente, es una parte muy interesante porque, bueno, pues vemos todos los hechos del conde, ¿no? Aquí, como dice Dacre, bueno, pues deja una puerta sumamente abierta, ¿no? Para la especulación, como pasa con el conde. Okay, and then we came with, for me, was one of the most important part of the novel, which they gather all together to start taking serious this, because this is happening to them, and only with knowledge they can chase and battle the Count, and that knowledge came from Van Helsing.
Knowledge is power.
Definitely.
Remember, he said that knowledge is power, and they have the ability, all this collective power that these guys have, but it couldn't be used until they all believed. You must believe in things you know to be untrue.
Yeah.
Okay, that was harnessing this faith and goodness and humanity to come together. Just because we really don't know what a vampire is, we can still come together and figure out, okay, this is the clues, this is where we get him. And now our own Mina has been affected. Our Renfield has presumably died. Now they get a great sense of urgency to collectively come together. It's like, when a country is at war, all the people with their differences, they tend to come together, forget their differences, and they're unified against the common enemy. This is where we are in the story right now.
And Van Helsing explained everything he knows about Dracula. I am sorry. So sorry.
Yeah, I love this part because it's the part where I think people go afterwards and look at the book again and again and going, oh, what did he say that a vampire was? What were the powers? How can you stop him? Yeah. This is one of the parts that people, when they come to me and say, where did Bram learn all this stuff? And what do you think about Stephen King or Anne Rice or anybody else? Oh, yeah, but they follow the same rules. Remember, Van Helsing said this to everybody.
And that is a lesson for eternity, because the Bram work was published in 1887, and we're still thinking about the vampires in that way because of that lesson.
Yeah, and okay, some people change it a little bit. That's okay. Yeah. It's fun to deviate a little bit, but this is the basic sort of guidelines that Bram creates. And it's the world that he creates. And we all say now, create your own world and stick rules for writers. And it's okay to change them, but if you're going to change the rules, change your world, you got to make it believable. And by the fact that Bram Stoker set this story And just in this chapter here, he had street addresses, he had names of hotels, names of subway stations, train stations. It all felt very real, the world he created. You know why? Because it was London in 1893 that he created it.
Definitely. Ok. Y bueno, pues para esta parte nos encanta porque, bueno, pues es la parte de donde Van Helsing hace un resumen de todo lo que es el Conde Drácula, de todos sus poderes. Como dice Dacre, bueno, pues él recibe muchas preguntas de, bueno, ¿y de dónde sacó la información? Bueno, esta es la parte que es muy relevante porque Van Helsing nos está contando en una lección que ha perdurado hasta ahorita cuáles son los lineamientos de lo que es el vampirismo, ¿no? Ahí en esta conversación que tiene con los héroes, él define, ¿no?, lo que tendría que ser el vampiro y que, bueno, muchas en el relato popular, ¿no?, se ha cambiado, ¿no? Y está bien que la gente altere los relatos, ¿no? Pero bueno, finalmente todo mundo parte de esta parte que es el trabajo de Bram, que es increíble, ¿no? Okay.
Well, that leaves us with telling our viewers, read next week.
Yep.
We'll see you in a week. This, you know, we're going to see what happens as these guys start going into strange places looking for boxes. So Definitely. Enjoy yourself. Leave the lights on.
Dacre, thank you so much. Gente, muchas gracias. Es tiempo de seguir leyendo. Ya vienen, nos estamos acercando precisamente al final, entonces sigan leyendo porque se va a poner muy interesante. Thank you, Dacre.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.